Hi, everyone. Before I introduce myself and tell you a little bit about my life, raise your hand if you've ever experienced a PR crisis. Have you ever dealt with a story or a headline that you wish would go away? Okay, so what we're really hoping to do here today is also take a few of your questions and comments. This doesn't have to be at the end of the talk. If you feel while I'm talking that something I'm saying resonates with you, you'd like to jump in with your own story, please do feel free. I'll keep checking if you have things to say in our very short, limited time of 20 minutes. Thank you for the kind introduction. For those of you who don't know me, and there may be many of you in this room, my name is Barkha Dutt. My name actually means the rain. And it kind of fits with my personality, which I sometimes describe self-critically as a cloudburst. You can't always predict a cloudburst, and you can't always direct one. But I've learned over the years to at least get a weather forecast going for my reactions. I cut my teeth as a war reporter. When I was in my 20s, I was sent to the front line. I wasn't actually sent. I fought to go to the front line to report a war between India and Pakistan called the Kargil War. That was 1999. Since then, I have actually built a reputation as a war and conflict reporter. I have reported from some of the toughest places in the world: Afghanistan, Iraq, Egypt, Libya, most recently Israel, Gaza. I know a thing or two about battle and survival, literally. So you might be wondering, why am I here talking about PR? What is my qualification? I'm not a PR rep. I don't run a PR agency, so why am I here? One simple answer. I've been on both sides of a bad headline. Right? Of course, as a reporter, it is my job to doggedly go after what looks like a bad story. As they famously say, journalism is what someone doesn't want you to publish, everything else is PR. So as a reporter, I have chased that story that somebody doesn't want me to publish. But as a very, very in the public eye figure in my own country, I have also been acutely scrutinized, put under the microscope. Everybody has an opinion of me. I've dealt with intense adulation and some fierce criticism. What I'm proud to say is that I've never been ignored. And I think that matters. But because I have been on both sides of a bad headline, I'm here to talk about the psychological warfare that we all have to fight in the age of social media. Once upon a time, you only had to worry about a bad headline from what's called legacy media or mainstream media. Today, you live in the age of influencers and trolls, and everybody instantly may be writing to you, telling you what they think of you. And the human instinct is to respond back. When I was younger, I would argue with each one of my trolls on Twitter, where I have 7 million followers. It took a certain learning to understand that the main aim of somebody criticizing you quite often is to get under your skin. And engagement is not always the best response. So we're here to talk about the various responses that you can actually have when it's your worst PR crisis. When do you ignore it? When do you own it? When do you laugh at it, convert it into a joke? And when do you respond, but just once? So, ignore it. I'm going to open up, after I share a story with you, a story from India, about a recent big company dealing with a very bad headline. I'm giving away no secrets here. This has all been in the public space. How many of you here are familiar with a company called Ola? Ola? Ola is a big mobility company. It's kind of like Grab or Gojek here in Singapore. Or we have Uber, but we also have Ola. Now, Ola, according to some accounts, hasn't been doing too well. There had been complaints about its customer service and so on. A very popular stand-up comic in India called Kunal Kamra. Anyone familiar with him? So a few people here are, but he's like a vastly popular, it doesn't matter whether you like him or not, he has following, right? Now he started critiquing Ola's customer service. The CEO promoter of Ola got so enraged that he waded into this fight and he started fighting with Kunal Kamra on Twitter. And like if you're watching it from the sidelines, you were like, oh my God, what is he doing? Somebody stop him. Why is he doing this? And he was using language like, either fix the problem or shut up. Like if you have your phone and you quickly pull this out, you'll see it on, I shouldn't even call it Twitter, otherwise Elon Musk will come after me, but like on X, which was formerly known as Twitter. On X, you can actually see this very, very coarse argument taking place between them. And Kunal, as a comedian, is not afraid of actually being coarse, right? So, he can fall back on that coarseness and deploy it as a kind of instrument of communication. So they got into this really, really ugly battle. And by the end of it, there were 10,000 consumer complaints offline in real life. And Ola's shares took a hit, right? And it was such a poor way of handling a crisis or a comment that simply should have been ignored in the online space. Ola's managers should have looked at the critique and said, okay, why are we getting this PR? Let's try and do, is it legitimate? Do we need to address this? And if we need to address this, let's do something about it offline. That's an example of something that I think should have been ignored. Engagement is not always the appropriate response. Own it. There are times in your life when you can own a bad headline or a polarizing headline or a controversy in one of two ways. Either admit you're wrong or say that you stand by whatever position you take, irrespective of what controversy it caused, because you're proud of it. Those are the two ways of owning it. And I'm going to share two real-life examples, once again from India, to elaborate on my argument. Anyone familiar here with Bajaj Auto? Bajaj Auto is India's largest seller of motorcycles. Rajiv Bajaj is the promoter, CEO of Bajaj Auto. A couple of years ago, Bajaj decided to announce that it was pulling all advertisements on 3 news channels from India, right? These 3 news channels are very influential, vastly popular, huge numbers. Rajiv Bajaj issued a statement saying that he believed that news channels in India had started promoting toxicity, and he did not want his brand to be associated with it. There was a furor on social media. The American elections tell us that our discourse is more polarized than ever before. And of course, everybody who supported and were fans of these channels went after Bajaj. He did not respond after that, but he stuck to his guns. There were no retractions, no clarifications, nothing, no apologies. And a few days later, 2 other big corporations followed and pulled their advertising, including Parle G, which makes glucose biscuits, which many of you may be familiar with. They pulled their ads too. That was an example of owning it in an unapologetic way. We stand by what we've done, we own it. You find it controversial, that's okay. He took that line. Another brand, Nestle, has a product in India that I think all of us have a memory built around. It's called Maggi. I mean, the Indians in this room cannot not know Maggi, right? There was a point at which Maggi was getting slammed for high lead content. And Maggi took, I thought, the very adult line of saying, this is a grave allegation. We will withdraw all products from the market. They did not initially try to deny it, defend it. They just withdrew their products from the market. After a gap of time, they launched a new media campaign around trust. And that campaign spoke of how trust involves transparency. And when they did something wrong, they felt the need to pull this product from the market, take the financial hit that came with it, but be open and upfront and honest with their consumer. Because Maggi wasn't just a product, it was about a relationship, it was about memory, it was about nostalgia. And Maggi just waltzed back into the market. Respond once. I don't know what you guys think about work-life balance and if it's a big debate here, but in India it's a big debate. And we had the CEO of a prominent company called Bombay Shaving Company who declared that when you're young, in the first 4 or 5 years of your career, you shouldn't be, his words, whining about work-life balance. You should be ready to work 18-hour days. Now, we live in the age of the Gen Z, and the Gen Z was having none of this. And so the CEO of Bombay Shaving Company had to take ferocious pushback on his statement. And he eventually issued an apology, not an explanation. He said, I'm sorry, I think my views, he didn't say these are not my views. He said, my views have, given me the reputation of a kind of slave owner. I'm quoting him here, I apologize for what I said. Now, this respond once is very important because once you give out a statement, you can't keep engaging with every critic. You cannot do that. And I'll tell you a little story about how I walked into that trap when I was a younger person. When I was at Kargil at the front line, we had in 1999 in Jammu and Kashmir, we had no mobile phones. This was a war front. I was in my 20s, and we had like bombs falling all around us, no access to newspapers, no access to phone calls home. When I went home after 2 weeks at the front line, I found that I had become a national name. And 95% of the responses were very adulatory, and it was a very heady experience for a young 20-something. But 5% was a whisper campaign which was growing. And the whisper campaign was a serious allegation which said that when I had been at the war front, I had given away locations of Indian troops because of something I said in my... The versions differed. One version was because of what I said in my commentary. Another version said it was a light on my camera. A third version said it was a sat phone. But they all kind of ended with the same allegation. And you can imagine I was very young. And this was heartbreaking for me. And in that instant, I stopped looking at all the love and the adulation and the accolades I was getting, and I got fixated, oh my God, have I done this? So the first thing I did was I had tea with the army chief who invited me and thanked me for my reporting. And I said, sir, have I done this? And he said, absolutely not. You don't have to pay any attention to this. So I walked away saying, I mean, India's army chief has told me this is rubbish. I don't have to talk about this anymore. The army chief then told this story in his memoirs about how I came as this young woman, very disturbed. Have I done this, sir, without knowing? And I said, oh, this is the last that has been spoken on this subject. He said it in writing. To my dismay, I found over the years that the rumor wouldn't leave me. And every time somebody wanted to criticize me and they didn't know what to criticize me for, they would pull this out and say it to me on X, on Facebook, on Instagram. And it took a lot of self-discipline to realize, to realize that I had already responded to this once, and that was it. And now it doesn't matter how many times I am sought to be provoked with this, I will not respond. You do not keep responding to an attempt to weaponize profound experiences in your life to which you have, with the honesty of your conscience, responded once and then you drop it. Right? So that's a real-life example. So the Bombay Shaving Company, not quite the same sort of gravity of the problem he was dealing with, but he responded once and he left it. And I think people have moved on. You don't keep engaging. Finally, if you don't convert it into a joke with some humor, and there are contexts and moments to do this, the joke will be on you. And there's a superb example of a KFC controversy from the United Kingdom that I absolutely love telling. There was a time, believe it or not, that KFC ran out of chicken. And 600 of the 800 stores of KFC in England had no chicken. Now, you're a chicken restaurant that doesn't have chicken. What do you do? And it was something that had gone wrong with their delivery partner or whatever. So KFC took out an ad. And the ad had the same KFC bucket of chicken. And instead of saying KFC, it said FCK. Right? It owned the issue. It explained in the advertisement that this is the reason that they weren't getting their chicken. And it ended with the joke, the chicken crossed the road, just not to us. Right? And everybody had a good laugh, and they were able to stabilize. But they were both honest and funny in that exchange. So in my own life, I have a personal story where, I mean, I didn't consciously try to do it. I just thought it was very funny. I guess some of you have heard of a man called Arvind Kejriwal. He's one of our relatively new politicians in India. And he just won a big election in Delhi, which is the capital of India. And I was trying to meet him, and I wanted an interview with him. And I pushed my way through this crowd, and he said, OK, come, Barkha, come and sit with me. So I went and sat with him, and I was surrounded by like completely random people whom I didn't know. And I was asking him for an interview. He said no to the interview. And then I was sitting with him and holding my phone like this because I wanted a few photographs, so I thought I could get a quick soundbite on the phone. Anyway, so we took a few photographs. I went out, I did my report. This is what this guy said, etc., etc. I was very pleased that I'd got some comments from him, and I went off. I later saw that that image had been photoshopped in such a way that the phone that I was holding sitting next to him had been made into a stack of money. Yeah, like there was like hundreds of thousands of rupees. And random trolls started sharing this image saying that I took money from Kejriwal. I promise you. The image was so viral that somebody sent it to me. Like it did its rounds of WhatsApp forwards, and I actually was at the receiving end of this WhatsApp forward. I thought it was a hilarious story. So I actually, thankfully, had the original photograph. So I put up the original photograph, and I put this photograph out, and I made a big joke about it. The other time I did that, and I'll pause after that because we have just 4 minutes left, and I want to hear from all of you. Wikipedia keeps marrying me off. I'm not married, but it keeps marrying me off. So if you go to Wikipedia and you look me up, you will see that I have 3 husbands. These 3 men, poor chaps, don't exist. Their names have been made up. They have been manufactured out of somebody's very vivid imagination. I have no idea what the agenda is unless people are just used to imagining women in a certain way, in a certain template with a husband and children and a dog. I don't know what it is, but this is Wikipedia on me. Again, when I was younger, I used to find this very, like, what the hell? I wrote to Wikipedia, I sued Wikipedia, my account was locked for 1 month. Of course, like the nature of the internet is, everything went away, the rumors came back. So now, I often open my talks with my 3 husbands, right? And everybody laughs along with you. The moral of all of this is you have to be able to decide when you ignore something, when you engage with it, and when you respond to it, but never repeatedly. And humor as well as vulnerability, are the most disarming qualities in dealing with criticism. I find that the way people behave with me online is so different from the way people behave when you actually meet them, when they actually get a chance to know you. When you actually say, you know what, when random people say this, I've learned to laugh at it today, but it actually hurts. And people feel, yeah, that shouldn't have happened to you. So do remember that the strongest weapons in your armor, if you want a bad headline to go away, is humor and vulnerability. But there are often times, because we live in the age of organized trolling, that you have to have the strength, the mental strength, to ignore comments. And also realize human psychology tends to focus more on the negative than the positive. So for example, let's say I do a story. It will have 1 lakh likes. It will have 2 negative comments. And the human tendency is to engage with those negative comments and ignore the fact that it has 1 lakh likes. So we are living in an age of mind games, of virtual mobs, and the only thing that you can do in this situation is to be yourself, is to be authentic. Don't hesitate to be open, but don't also hesitate to be strong, and rise above the noise. Ignore it. People will not call you arrogant, or even if they do, if you believe you were not arrogant, you're not going to change their mind by getting into an online argument with them, right? Let your story speak, let your product speak, tell a counter narrative, tell an alternative story. Sometimes it'll be serious enough for you to respond once, but only once.